when we think negatively, it weakens our body. So what does that do? It weakens our immune system. It weakens our health. It weakens our muscles. It weakens our bodies.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Tea. I'm your host, Tanya Tyler, and I'm excited because we're going to connect with Dr. Kris and talk about unstuckness and finding your healer, your inner energy strength. But without further ado, and I'm not going to share our story, I want to welcome Dr. Kris to the show. Welcome, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. Awesome. Thanks for having me, Tanya.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I love what you're working and some of the stuff that I followed you on other podcasts, and you talk about unstuckness and your energy and your healer and some really great stuff. But before we really dive into that conversation, can you tell a little bit about who you are and maybe share what you've learned from the pandemic?
Wow, that's different. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I guess a little bit about me. Really, I help people to live more consciously and consistently in their bodies, to help them work through, various pain, trauma, stuckness, really, to remove that, to move forward in a more calm, complete, and, happy way. And my journey started a long time ago, probably lifetimes ago. I feel I had this intuitiveness of just knowing and I've studied so many different healing modalities, from chiropractic to energy work, acupuncture, Reiki, mind body healing. And there was this knowingness that, like, oh, this doesn't work, or I don't need this. And then not from a sense of like an entitlement, because I would never question anyone's authority or ability. It was just something that I put in my own practice. And I took a lot of what worked and a lot of things that I loved and studied and just created my own energy technique. And, I've been doing that for 20 years. And COVID was an opportunity for me to kind of shift that and, to create something different. There was this inner knowing, again, is just like listening to that heart that, there's that voice inside our head that kind of is that, we were just talking before about, if you actually listen to it, you wouldn't be its friend. And there's this inner knowing that's deep within our heart when you kind of sit and meditate or just kind of sit in stillness. And that's something I do regularly and been doing a long time. And just listening to that voice and allowing that to kind of steer the ship. And it's that ship that says, turn right, and then you go left and get stuck in traffic. But really going that right is the way that really takes you home quicker. And so that inner knowingness, that's kind of just allowed me to kind of, move forward and always asking why. That was a really important thing for me that I still do. But yeah, COVID was that opportunity of like, what's kind of next, and I thought, looking at COVID, I really didn't think it was going to be what it was. And I thought, this is a couple months, I can write a book. And in that process, that opened up a new thing that I really wanted to do something more. Like I didn't want to just tell my story and how to help people like awaken their own healer inside. And that's really what I shifted towards in last year. And what I'm moving really focused on this year is allowing people to be more responsible for their health rather than me be responsible for the health. Meaning, people come to me and I'm broken, Kris, fix me. And I do the fixing. And then, a week later, a month later, a year later, they broke themselves again and they're back in my office and they're not really taking accountability for their own stuff. I had someone in here right before this call, and we were talking about, like, she knows as soon as stress comes, her back starts to hurt. I'm like, well, let's looking at your stress. Let's deal with the trigger, and she knows exactly where it comes from, some embodiment issues as a child. But, she's like, I've known this forever, but she's not taking that step to do anything different other than come to me to fix that. And that's the shift, is like, now I can help people online working through that. And I talked to her a little bit about it, and, it's up to her to make that step forward as to like, I want to make this change. I'm tired of, having failed relationships, because that's part of it, because that's what she's stressing about now, another failed relationship, because she's attracting the same partner because of this wounded child based on this abandonment issue. So she's going to get people that's going to abandon her and not support her like she really truly wants moving forward in a real positive, loving relationships that she likely won't achieve until she lets go. She won't achieve until she lets go of that. And we've talked about that. And she knows that, but it's, up to her to make that change.
Right, right. I love what you're talking about. And for those who aren't familiar with my process on how we do the podcast, I had a great call with Dr. Kris before we actually came on to do this podcast. And I know he identifies himself as an embodiment coach. And I had to ask, for those who
Yeah.
don't know and might see his name, can you explain how the embodiment and it sort of triggers goes into the stuckness as we go down, but I want to give us a basic overall, like when you say
Yeah.
you're an embodiment coach, what does that look like?
Right. And that's kind of where we talked about, at the beginning where I topped off, but just living more consciously in our bodies and being more aware of our bodies. So getting in our bodies, that's the embodiment process, because we spend so much time in our heads, whether that's too much TV or too many video games or worried about work. And then we try to dumb that down with alcohol, drugs, working too much, stuck on television, right? We try to get out of our heads, but just mind numbing things. And it's really a process of getting into your bodies. Why? Because when you are triggered or we're feeling something, we actually feel it in our bodies. There's a heaviness, a density that comes with it, a darkness that comes. When we're angry, we feel that in our bodies, right? When we're worried, we actually feel worried. We're anxious. You feel it in our bodies. And if you don't, next time you're out in traffic jam and want to swear and bang your hand against the steering wheel, just think about it. I'm like, oh my God, I do feel that in my body, right? And even if you start thinking about something now, I can guarantee you that if you start thinking about something that's, negative, you're going to start to feel that. And that affects our body. Even if I were to see someone in person and, and I do this in workshops and in-person workshops, is to show people that when we think negatively, it weakens our body. So what does that
Right.
do? It weakens our immune system. It weakens our health. It weakens our muscles. It weakens our body. So all cells in our body start to go weaker. And this isn't just me. This is science. And they showing there was a study where they tested a guy with electrodes just by he was in the Korean War or Vietnam or one of the wars, and they just showed a video of the war that he was in, and he instantly triggered him. And they tested how because we're all energy, they're testing his energy, how his energy was drained, lowered. And we feel lower when we're having a bad day, we're feeling down. What do we want to do? We want to sleep. We want to just watch TV. We want to do nothing because our energy's there. But if we were going on vacation, it's like you can stay up, all night. You can, we got all this abundant energy. So what's different? A lot of it has to do with our thoughts, and so that's the idea of the idea of getting into your bodies. And why? Because once you start to get into your bodies, you can actually start to release it. So it's a little bit different than therapy. Therapy is you're stuck in your head. You're really just talking about your childhood or what happened in your divorce or, why you're going through this financial issue. When you get in your bodies, really that's where the core is. To get into, my background as a chiropractor, it actually triggers your nervous system. So there's a whole nervous system process that you go through, but you trap these emotions, and we just have to start to acknowledge them and recognize them. So I take people through a process to do that, and I teach them and show them how to do it themselves so they can leave empowered to now work on themselves rather than, come to me or go to a therapist. You actually have the tools to do it yourself.
Right. I love how you bring it up, because you said it's like we're energy sources, and that was profound when I first figured that out. It's like, oh, we are energy sources. When you go down to the science of things. But I love, how you bring your chiropractor background into the embodiment thing. And can you share a little bit about is it true that if you have a knee issue, it may be something maybe you need to kick something out of your life. I've
Right.
heard or if it's in your stomach, it could be something that, there's a whole bunch of science stuff which is way above my pay grade, but you
Right.
know what I'm talking about. Like
Right.
if different parts are affected by different things, it could be different
Right.
triggering traumas. Is that
Right.
what you're sort of saying?
Yeah, so I know that, there will be those people that support that. There'll be hard and fast rule of yes, if it's knee pain, you got to kick someone out or lack of flexibility. But, or if it's your liver, it's anger. And yeah, there's some truth to that. But for me, it's more like it kind of a tool to help you to look into it. Yeah, there is some trauma that's causing that knee pain, especially if there was really, if it just started hurting for no reason, if there was like, if you actually kicked something and your knee hurts, well, that might be part of it. And, I could take you down another, road of how that's probably related to something else. But, the hard and fast rule there would be, yeah, obviously you kick something or you hurt it or you're running and you'd fallen and that tweak your knee, there's a physical trauma to the knee. But yeah, if it just kind of out of nowhere, there's often a reason, like, or if it's a chronic issue, then that's typically telling me that there's emotion attached to it. So if you have a chronic knee pain where like every time you run, your knee hurts, then it's not the running. It's no longer related. There could be some structural problem, but maybe I've been to the chiropractor. Maybe you've been to the physical therapist. Maybe you had it treated, but it keeps coming back. Or you're going to the chiropractor and it's not going away completely. Then to me, those are signs that there's some emotional attachment that's preventing you from fully healing and getting to the results you want. And, and that's what I would get a lot of those clients that have seen other therapists and just can't seem to not have to keep going. They're going constantly, like, got to keep going to the chiropractor like every 3 weeks because my back keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. To me, that's more driven on some root based related to an emotion.
Right.
The physical aspect is doing good. The chiropractor has done that part, but what is the underlining now that's kind of there? Because I would look at things as being toxic, so things we put in our bodies, and the stuff that structural, so trauma, some sort, an accident, repetitive strain. But then there's what we think and or our past stuff, and that impacts us as well. So.
Right. I mean, there's so much it's so you can go so much layer down and stuff like that. It's
Right.
amazing. But I want to take this moment to remind everybody that if you've been picking up with Dr. Kris, he's been dropping some nuggets. So please hit that like button over there. Maybe follow up with a comment down below because we're going to talk about the unstuckness and maybe figuring out ways to awaken that healer. And what does that look like? So, Dr. Kris, can you talk about what does how important is the awareness, as you were saying, to your body play into maybe healing the energy and the unstuckness of your life? How does that?
Right. So yeah, it's just kind of connecting. It's listening to your body. So it's not like, automatically assuming that, oh, I got liver issues. It's anger. It's kind of like, well, let's tune in. Is it anger? Maybe where's this anger coming from? So then you kind of start to like ask questions about it. It's really just like asking the body questions and then listening. So it's like, okay, yeah, I got anger. Yeah. Okay. So it is anger. So who am I angry at? Am I angry at? And most people, it's because why I want people to think off of that, because people think, oh, well, I must be angry at my wife because it's, always my wife or it's always my boss. And the likelihood of that being the case is very superficial because it might be deeper related to like, I'm truly angry at my father for, how he treated my mom. I'm truly angry at my father for how he treated me or, how, in sixth grade, my teacher called me dumb. I'm angry at her for that. What's below that surface stuff of what's happening now? Because that's just your trigger is to really start to ask questions.
I love that because it's like basically when you're talking about healing yourself, and we're diving down to, we can only go so much in the 20 minutes, but you're basically saying start getting curious, start asking questions. And here's the thing is, you say you ask questions to your body, and I share with what I do is I'll ask a question, maybe, in the universe, whatever you want to say, out loud, whatever. And then I go for a walk. And then for some reason, an answer comes to me. Is that sort of like what you say? It's like asking your body, it's like, I feel his body ache. Where are you coming from? Is
right. And sometimes you have to rephrase a question, or sometimes you don't get an answer, and don't judge yourself. Just you asking is really what your body wanted you to finally get curious, is to be more curious of what's happening in our bodies rather than just be, cut and dry as like, oh, I didn't get an answer, I'm not good at this. Because that's our go-to, is just like back to where we started it, but our thoughts of like, I can't meditate because my mind doesn't get still, or I didn't get an answer. It takes practice. It's like riding a bike. You don't ride the bike once and then boom, I'm going with no hands and driving on top of this, on top of the bike seat. It's like, really, you gotta start somewhere. So
Right. So I got a couple of questions before we
yeah.
wrap up. What would be maybe two or three tips that you would say for somebody who's starting to get curious about what does this embodiment look like? Where does this energy look like?
Yeah. So really for me, it's going to start with just starting to learn to relax your nervous system. And I'm just putting a book out, just a short ebook shortly. So people check my website. I'll be there for free. But it's really getting, some steps of just relaxing your nervous system. So whether that's breath work or, cold showers, yoga, there's lots of simple practices that people can do to, just to start to reset or relax that nervous system. And the other tip for people is really, start to get curious, just to start asking questions and to be more aware. Try not to allow yourself to, give yourself 15 minutes every morning just to be with you. Some practice like a morning routine, or maybe it's an evening routine. People say, I don't have time in the morning. Everyone has an extra 15 minutes, because I'm not asking you to, you don't have to meditate an hour like, your neighbor who's, or a yogi who can do a million poses and stand on their head. It's really just starting small. And then maybe, okay, I like my 50 minutes. I'm going to grow to 20, I'm going to go to 30. But it's just a simple morning routine where maybe you journal, maybe you, sit with your breath, or maybe you're just going to be with yourself. Maybe you're going to try to meditate. It's really just some kind of routine that you're giving yourself, just you, because we don't do that enough at all. A lot of people.
Right.
Yeah.
You're really, you like said, it's like bringing ourselves back to becoming a friend of ourselves is what I'm hearing.
100%. Right. Yeah, absolutely. We're
So,
spending where we spend our most time with you. So it's, that's, you're the common denominator in everything in your life. So absolutely. You want to be your best friend.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. So, Dr. Kris, what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with if they don't hear anything else that you share with us today? What's the one thing you want them to take away from this interview?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many. I really, just, put yourself first. Self-care and your own love for yourself is most important. Simple thing you've probably heard hundreds of times is that whose mask you put on first in a plane, it's yours. And too often, especially, young mothers are putting all the air into their children, and, they're not putting time for them. So it's, realizing that I'm only as good as I show up. And if I show up at 20%, I'm showing up 20% for my kids. But if I can give myself 15 minutes in the morning and show up at 80%, like, what kind of a better parent are you? Because when you're at 20%, what are you doing? You're on your phone. I see that all the time with parents on your phone, your kid's doing something and you're on your phone, or you're distracted with something else. Like, you can show up for yourself, then you're going to be able to show up for other people. And that starts by putting yourself and your needs first. And it's not selfish. People think, oh, that's just so selfish of you. But it's truly is like I said, again, if I can only I want to bring 100% Kris to everything I do. And if that means I need to do less of something, less seeing clients, less, going out with friends, less doing whatever that, requires of me to feel my best. I want to do that for everybody. And you're going to be, if you get 100% Kris versus a 20% Kris, can you imagine the difference of like me showing up to dinner at 100% versus Kris who doesn't want to be there and really wants sitting there watching a sporting event or just staring at the girls by, or, not even being present versus being there 100%. So,
Right, right. Yeah, it's true. Like you said, I have to say I drink to that. That's coffee with tea. So,
yeah.
But I want to also, where can people find more information about you, your services, and how can they connect with you?
Yeah. So my website's belfrywellness.com, and they can sign up, and I think there's a free meditation, a free couple free gifts, and there'll be a book on there at some point shortly about resetting your nervous system. And if they think that I can help them, I offer a free discovery call just to see if it's something that's a fit for both of us. I'm looking for the right client. If I can help them, I want to work with them. And if I feel that I know somebody that might help them, I also have a network of people that I work with that I've met over the years that are wonderful, that I would recommend too, that, if I can't help them, maybe someone else can. So someone, looking that's stuck or just kind of have questions, I'd love to have a conversation and
Well,
see where it goes.
well, again, Dr. Kris Belfry, thank you.
It costs nothing but your time, right?
Thank you for your time, Dr.
Well, my
Belfry.
pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Again, I want to say thank you for sharing your insight and your wisdom with us today on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was great.
And I would love to have you come back. This is my unofficial. Would you be willing to come back and have a deeper dive on a conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. Seems so short. It flew by.
I know 20 minutes is amazing, right? So I also want to thank everybody who tuned in. Remember that feedback is always welcome. Links that Dr. Belfry mentioned will be posted down in the description box below. So please make sure you check it out down there below. If you've enjoyed what Dr. Kris Belfry shared today, please make sure you hit that like button down there. Yeah. And remember, if you want to continue getting all the great insight like Dr. Belfry shared today and many others that we have on the show, please make sure you hit that subscribe button over there. And remember, take things in stride, go with the flow, and create your own path. And we will see you back here on another episode of Coffee with Tea. All right, bye-bye.